High on Mount Everest, just below the summit, a woman lay curled in the snow. Her jacket was purple, her eyes were closed. Her face looked peaceful, like she was asleep. But she wasn't sleeping, she was dying, and for years every climber who passed her called her the same, Sleeping Beauty. In 1998, Francys Arsentiev made history. She became the first American woman to reach the top of Mount Everest without using bottled oxygen, one of the hardest and most dangerous achievements in mountaineering. But the celebration didn't last. On the way down, everything went wrong. She became weak, disoriented, frostbitten, lost in the thin air of the death zone. Her husband tried to find her. Other climbers tried to save her. But at 8,000 meters, even helping someone can cost you your life. Francys died just a few hundred meters from safety. Her body stayed on Everest for nearly a decade, a frozen reminder of what can happen when the mountain turns against you. This is the true story of Francys Arsentiev, the woman who reached the top of the world but never made it back. Before we talk about the story of Francys, I would like to ask a favor. If you love mountaineering stories and the secrets hidden in the world's deadliest mountains like me, make sure to subscribe. I want to bring these stories back to life, and I'm on the road to my first 1,000 subscribers. Your subscription would mean a lot to me. Francys Yarbrough. DiStefano lived in the lovely, dynamic ski town of Telluride, Colorado. Many athletic, handsome climbers from all over the world came here all the time, including Sergei Arsentiev, who was nicknamed the Snow Leopard because he conquered the 5 highest peaks of the former Soviet Union. Sergei charmed Francys straight away, and the couple later married. Francys shared the mountaineer's passion, and together with him, she tried to conquer the mountains a little at a time. Her fearless determination made her name in history as the first American woman to ski down Elbrus. Then, the couple set themselves a legendary goal: to conquer Everest so that Francys could become the first American woman to climb the highest peak in the world. With her achievement, she wanted to show that women's endurance is underestimated. On top of that, the couple decided to do it without supplemental oxygen and without guide support. At the time, Francys and Sergei had an 11-year-old son. His parents' plan scared him. The boy even had a terrible dream in which 2 climbers were trapped on a mountain, destroyed by a storm and couldn't escape, the snow knocking them down. The boy told his mother about his dream and begged her not to go. But Francys was determined and wasn't going to cancel the Everest climb. In May of 1998, Francys and Sergei Arsentiev began their ascent of Mount Everest. Because of bad weather and delays, Francys and Sergei were forced to make several summit attempts, turning back multiple times to avoid disaster. Each time they climbed higher, their bodies grew weaker. The lack of oxygen made everything slower, harder, more dangerous. Still, they pushed forward because they knew that every delay meant less time, less strength, and more risk. At 1 a.m. on May 20th, they were to make the final push to the top of Everest, but suddenly the pair's flashlights broke. Finding themselves in complete darkness, they couldn't move on. On May 21st, the pair tried to resume the ascent. However, Francys and Sergei were already exhausted. This time, the couple gained about 100 meters in altitude and realized their energy reserves were slowly running out. They decided not to risk their lives anymore, but returned to camp to rest before the final push. On May 22nd, they moved up again. Still, this descent was painfully slow, each step being unfathomably tough. It was already getting dark because Francys and Sergei were far behind the planned time. Usually, climbers calculate the deadline so they don't have to turn back in the dark. Francys and Sergei had been at an altitude of more than 8,000 meters for several days. This is the most dangerous region of Everest, called the Death Zone. This part of the mountain got its name because there is a catastrophic lack of oxygen here, and the human body begins to fight for survival. At that moment, the climbers regretted not taking their oxygen tanks and began to think about an escape plan. Then, the pair decided to split up for some reason. Sergei returned to camp. The next morning, he found that Francys hadn't arrived yet. Filled with concern, he set out again. armed with the necessary supplies of oxygen and medicine. He knew how dangerous that decision was. He knew the risks. But he also knew what it meant to leave her up there alone. It was a choice driven by love, and it would be his last. Sergei never made it back. The next morning, a group of climbers made a chilling discovery. Francys was still alive. She was curled in the snow, barely conscious, with severe frostbite and no ability to move on her own. She had survived the night alone in the death zone, something almost no one ever does. Two climbers, Ian Woodall and Kathy O'Dowd, reached her position. They tried everything they could. They gave her oxygen and spoke to her, but she couldn't respond. Her condition was too far gone. They faced an unbearable truth. If they stayed and tried to carry her down, they would likely die too. The only choice was to leave her behind. Kathy later said it was the hardest decision she ever made in her life. Francys remained there, high on the mountain, slowly fading beneath the cold and the wind, just below the summit and just out of reach for help. Days later, Sergei's body was found lower on the mountain. He had fallen during his search for Francys, likely while climbing back up to reach her when he was too exhausted. In the end, both of them died on Everest, just days apart, trying to complete the same dream. Francys's body remained in plain view on the mountain for nearly a decade, curled in the snow, dressed in her purple jacket, her body seen by every climber who passed by. People began calling her Sleeping Beauty, not just for how she looked, but because of the heartbreaking stillness, the frozen peace that surrounded her. Then Ian and Kathy promised each other to return to Everest again to bury Francys. It took them 8 years and the couple's entire savings to prepare for this expedition. On March 20th, 2007, they reached the woman's body again and wrapped it in an American flag. They also enclosed a note from her son, and then they laid her to rest in a more private location on the mountain, out of sight from the hundreds of climbers who pass through every day and each year. Before they left, they held a short ceremony. No music, no speeches, just silence, snow, and the sound of the wind. It wasn't about headlines or recognition. It was about respect, about closure, and about doing the right thing, even when it was 10 years later. For Ian and Kathy, it was a final act of peace, and for Francys, it was the end of her long, lonely wait. For years, her body lay on the mountain, a silent witness to what she had endured. But even now, with her body gone from view, her story remains. It's still there, frozen in time, somewhere high above the clouds, where dreams and danger live side by side. A place where love, loss, and legacy are carved into ice and stone. If stories like Francys's move you the way they move us, consider subscribing to Tourist Tragedies. I share the real stories behind the world's most breathtaking places, and the people who gave everything to reach them. Some stories deserve to be remembered,